don't eat cookies before the meal. Put your hand in the cookie jar, pull the cookie out, sure tasted good, didn't it? Mom slapped your hand and said, don't do that again, it'll spoil your meal. So I said, yes, Mom. Next day, Mom's not looking. Put your hand in the cookie jar, eat the cookie. Sure tasted good, Mom didn't catch you. She got a little twinge. That twinge we call guilt. Here's the rule, you violated the rule. The expression of that is cognitive dissonance, to use psychological terms, and it leads to, we call it guilt, and in lay terms. So you have to resolve that guilt. You have to do something with it. So you go confess to Mom or whatever, but you've got to do something with the guilt. And here's what happens. You feel the tension, and then you engage in the behavior, then you experience the guilt. And then it starts all over again. The cookie sure tasted good yesterday. You start salivating like good old Pavlov's dogs. You go get a cookie, satisfies the hunger, and then you feel guilt. So it's a cycle. It's over and over and over again. Religion comes along and says, and we can teach you even better guilt. We can teach you how to be guilty about eating pork. We can teach you guilty about having sex before marriage. We can teach you all sorts of guilt about alcohol or caffeine if you're Mormon. Every religion has its own guilt cycle, and it's unique to that God virus. The Mormons got one that prohibits caffeine and alcohol. The Muslims have one that prohibits alcohol but allows you to have many wives as you want. So, I mean, there's a different thing. But if you have sex outside of that, you're guilty. And you can have your head chopped off in certain countries for doing that. So yeah, you might feel guilty about something you get your head chopped off. So, religious guilt has to be taught, though. What if I belonged to a religion that said you must eat a cookie before your meal? Then I would put my hand in the cookie jar, eat the cookie, and feel righteous. If I didn't put my hand in the cookie jar, I would feel guilty. It's totally relative to the God virus you were raised in, your particular God virus. So religion comes along and says, we're going to teach you what to be guilty of, and we'll forgive you. So you feel guilt, you feel the tension. I like pork. I'm going to eat some pork. It's a behavior. I feel guilty. My God says don't eat pork because I'm a Muslim or a Jew, and I have to get some religious forgiveness. So I go to the imam or the rabbi or whoever to try and get some relief from my guilt, and then the whole process starts all over again. The beautiful thing about this system is it always brings you back to the particular God virus that taught you that guilt. Baptists do not go to priests to confess. Catholics do not go to imams to confess. They have to come back to their particular God virus. It's the most incredible con game ever invented on the face of the earth. It brings you back to a specific God virus, the one you were infected with probably at the age of 5 to 7. Forgiveness does not work, but forgiveness brings you back and makes you dependent on the invisible friend, whatever the God virus is that you were infected with. So you hear people getting forgiven, you hear politicians, oh, God has forgiven me. Well, now I can go back and do it again. Or you see the Tammy Faye's or the Jimmy Bakers or the Swaggarts, and you just think of all the politicians that said, God has now forgiven me. And so once God's forgiven me, it allows me to continue actually to go back and doing the same thing. Think about this. Guilt drives behavior. Put that in your brain. Guilt drives behavior. The more you think about something, the more guilty you feel about it, the more you want to do it. The alcoholic that gets drunk on Saturday night, wakes up Sunday morning, says, oh, I feel guilty. I told my wife I wouldn't do that again. I told my children I wouldn't get drunk again. Next Saturday, they go out and do the same thing again. So you can see that guilt oftentimes does drive behavior. Religious guilt really drives behavior. The more guilty a Catholic priest feels about his sexuality, the more he's likely to do something really bad to express that sexuality. The more you try to infect people with these guilt-driven ideas. One of the main things religion always tries to show you is that you're never good enough. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once that's all the messages. Look at the hymnals in most churches. 80% of the music in there has something to do with the guilt message. Because religions thrive on guilt. If you took the guilt away, it wouldn't work. Guilt around survivor guilt. God saved me, now I owe him my life. You hear that over and over again from people who get religion. I've got to go do what God says because he saved me. All right, now let's get into the fun stuff. Sex and the God virus. Life in Lubbock, Texas by Book Chancock. Life in Lubbock, Texas taught me two things. One, that God loves you and you're going to burn in hell. The other is that sex is the most awful, dirty thing on the face of the earth, and you should save it for someone you love. God viruses need a way to infect you. Guilt is a great way to infect you, but they got to teach you what to be guilty of in the first place. Remember our cookie example. So guilt creates a pathway for infection. Remember, the key cannot open your cell. The virus can open your cell if it doesn't have the right key, or if the key is blocked up. Religions have to have the right key to open you up. Very few of you are susceptible to Zoroastrianism. Very few of you are susceptible to Scientology, or even Catholicism, or any other religion that you weren't born in. But the one you were born in, you are most susceptible to, or one similar to that. If you're born a Baptist, you're most susceptible to like becoming a Nazarene or something like that. So, of all the sexual activities that humans are going to do, masturbation is the one they're going to do the most often. All primates masturbate. Almost all mammals masturbate. If you think about it, well, I studied with Albert Ellis, the great psychotherapist and sexologist in the 1970s. Kind of dates me a little bit, doesn't it? He just died about at 102, 103 years old a few years ago. He's really stuck around a long time. Albert Ellis was fond of saying, 97% of men will admit to masturbating, and 3% are lying. I don't know about women, probably women too, but anyway, he didn't talk about women. Well, if we're going to do it anyway, then that's a great thing to teach you to feel guilty of. Catholics do a great job of making sure you feel guilty about masturbation. And because then you have to come back to the Catholic God virus to get forgiven. We have a Catholic priest in our Recovering from Religion group, ex-priest, not now. 8 years seminary. He said I could go about 30 days without masturbating, and then I'd do it. Oh, now I'm going to go to hell! Oh, better go find a priest. Confess to him. Confess the priest. Got forgiven. Next 30 days, have to do it again. They have to go find a priest. This went on for 8 years, until one day he was at the zoo. And he noticed the monkeys were masturbating. I'm a primate too. So he's the only person I ever know that let a monkey help him become an atheist. Religions are always going to try and find something that you're going to do anyway. You're going to eat. So let's make sure you feel guilty about eating certain kinds of foods. You're going to have sex. So let's make sure you feel guilty about having premarital sex. You're going to masturbate. Let's make sure you feel guilty about that. Because whatever we can make you feel guilty of, you can only get forgiveness and our particular God virus. This guilt cycle just comes back over and over again as the key to getting infected. All the major religions thrive on a negative sex environment. If anybody read the book Hawaii or seen the movie Hawaii, okay? First thing, missionaries arrive in Hawaii and they find all the natives running around with no clothes on. They say, put some clothes on or God's going to send you to hell.